Right, Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
Let's get to it. So, this story starts with a member of Congress, but it's really not about politics. It's about motherhood, fear, and what it means when citizenship is no longer enough to make you feel safe in your own country. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar told WCCO that fear hit home last week when her 20-year-old son was targeted by ICE. Not at the border, not crossing a line, just living his own life in Minnesota. She described a familiar routine: Friday prayers at the mosque with friends, then dinner at a favorite restaurant in Cedar Riverside. But that Friday, Omar knew ICE agents were in the area. She called her son over and over, and he didn't answer. And in that silence, every mother knows what happens next. Your mind fills in the worst case scenario. Omar later said she finally spoke to her son that night and explained just how heavy that fear had been.
I had to remind him just how worried I am, because all of these areas that they're talking about are areas where he could possibly find himself in. And they are racially profiling. They are looking for young men who look Somali that they think are undocumented.
Her son told her ICE agents entered the mosque while he was praying, but left without doing anything. Later, they showed up at the restaurant too. Again, nothing happened. And then the next day happened.
But yesterday, after he made a stop at Target, he did get pulled over by ICE agents. And once he was able to produce his passport ID, they did let him go.
An American citizen pulled over by federal agents and released only after showing his passport. His mother says he carries it all the time, just in case he needs to prove that he belongs here. That context matters when you hear the president's words.
Why is it we only take people from whole countries, right? Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime.
President Donald Trump has repeatedly attacked Omar and Somali immigrants. He has called her, quote, garbage and a, quote, terrible person. He has referred to Somalia as, quote, filthy and, quote, disgusting, mocked her appearance, falsely claimed she came here illegally, and encouraged crowds to chant, quote, send her back. This is not just rhetoric, it sets a tone. When leaders speak this way, enforcement follows the message. Advocates, legal experts, and human rights organizations overwhelmingly agree that racial profiling is unconstitutional, ineffective, and dangerous. It violates civil rights. It erodes trust. It targets Black and brown communities and sweeps up U.S. citizens along the way. When someone has to carry a passport to Target just to feel safe, the system is already broken. So for me, this is not about borders or closed borders or open borders. It's about whether America decides that looking American is enough, or whether some people will always be asked to prove it.
Well, I mean, I'm glad it wasn't he wasn't detained. He was asked to show papers. I guess the question then becomes, and I would ask this question of conservatives as well, do we want that to be the standard practice, that you have to carry a passport or documentation of your citizenship everywhere you go? If I go on a run, I don't bring my ID, or I just bring my keys and
even Target, you might pay with your phone, run to
Target. Right. So then the question just becomes, is that the way it's going to be? Or because we have illegal immigration and we want to deal with that, and the authorities are going to have to, they can't racially profile they can factor in racial, according to the Supreme Court, but it can't be the sole basis to stop someone. That's according to the law. So then it could just be anyone. Everyone. We're going to get to a place where everyone has to show proof of citizenship if this is the kind of thing you're doing. That would not be my first choice, but my fellow Americans might disagree. They might say that's a perfectly valid way to live in exchange for dealing with the problem of illegal immigration. So I think that's really what we have to ask ourselves.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz jumped into the conversation. He went on X yesterday and said Congresswoman Omar's son was pulled over by ICE while he was following the law on his way home from Target. This isn't a targeted operation to find violent criminals. It's just racial profiling. So, I mean, we can paint it up and make a pig have makeup on and say it's not a pig anymore. But like, we're watching what happens, right? If they are going into mosques where mostly Muslim people pray that are American, but find and explore the Muslim religion, if they are looking at people that look Somalian and going to places where they would hang out, right? Because I mean, even out here in Silver Spring, for example, there's a large Ethiopian community, and there are specific places where, as my best friend is Ethiopian, a lot of Ethiopian people hang out. So if they're going to those places often, now they're racial profiling. So how many times can we?
But is it racial profiling if they know that in a certain community there's a much larger proportion of illegal migrants from Ethiopia, so then they go to an Ethiopian location for that reason?
I mean, we talked about.
Would that be racial profiling?
I think I don't want to do what ifs. I know we're talking about what happened just now. So the president specifically is trashing Somalia because of a small amount of people that committed fraud in comparison to the larger number of Somalian migrants that are here.
Because the migrants who committed the fraud, well, many of them are, I think, they're not even they were born here. They're of immediate Somali.
Right. So but this is almost like a retaliation. I mean, so it's not that, oh my gosh, we need to look at this community so closely because they committed the fraud or did something specific. It's just him attacking Somali migrants because of this incident, and he wants to look strong on immigration. But mind you, in the process, he's racial profiling.
My point was the police, the authorities go where there's crime and where there's criminals.
And there's not crime at the mosque, last time I checked, for the most part. So that's what I'm saying. Her son went to the mosque and to dinner. And there's not crime too often at Target.
Of illegal immigrants. So they're going where
so
they
then
think their
basically
illegal
so
immigrants
and
would
your
be.
point then the main point is that the people have to walk around with their passport. I mean, we watched how this happened in New York when they said it wasn't racial profiling. Stop and frisk. Right. They found people that looked black and brown and pulled them over. I mean, there's no way
profiling,
to
right, because they were just stopping. I mean, yes, this gets into some tricky that was considered to be wrong because they were just routinely stopping every black person. I mean, you know, they could. It gets to some odd. I mean, there are disparities in crime. Like violent crime is disproportionately committed by men. So should they stop all men and not stop any women?
That's the thing. They're not doing that, Robbie. That's the thing.
Well,
like,
I'm posing it
like most people in Minnesota that don't look. What is the look of America that look American to people, which might just be considered white, are not being pulled over by ICE every single day or stopped when they're at Target. So that's the point. How do you decide, like, do I look American enough to not be bothered in Target? And that's the biggest issue where if you like migration or don't, how are we deciding how to pull people and stop people's days and make them issue identification?
If you're just doing it based on statistical likelihood, it's not even going to be Somali or African-looking people. Would be Hispanic-looking people are the
and that was an issue in Los Angeles. Remember?
Well, and that are the largest examples of illegal migration in our country would be Hispanic-looking people.
And I believe there's an ongoing Supreme Court that is reviewing a case right now about what's possible in Los Angeles because there's conversation about how they decide to pull people over. So.
Right, and I don't want to live in a country where we all got to show our papers. But if the mandate is to find more illegal immigrants, I'm not sure the authorities should just like ignore the evidence of their eyes for who's statistically more likely to be an illegal immigrant.
Oh, that gets into tricky territory that becomes racial profiling. That's the only thing that we have to acknowledge and admit, and how damaging that is to our country.
Next up, President Trump is taking his fight against fentanyl up another notch. We'll look at his new executive order right after this.